Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm chilling, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Sorry for the delay.
All good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how you doing, man? How you feeling?
I'm not doing too bad, man. Trying to make sure you're getting video. Are
Yeah, I
you?
see you.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
All right.
Cool. Yeah. So, thanks again for joining. My name is
Nothing to it.
Ritas. I am the founder and started Drumz Uhuru, which is a brand that, focuses on elevating the voices of those people that carry on Afro folkloric traditions. And, you are one of those people with your work in the Afro-Cuban space and with your Puerto Rican heritage. And, we've gotten a chance to connect and rap a little bit. So I wanted to have you on here and ask you a couple questions about your experience, your career, your goals as an artist, as a cultural worker, and just kind of get your perspective on some things. Is that all right?
Of course. I think we should clear something up real quick, though. I do not have Puerto Rican heritage. I'm African
Oh,
American.
oh, good.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Okay, well that's even better. I ain't know that. Cool, man. So, what has been your experience with African music, African folkloric music? What was your introduction to that?
Um, I mean, I guess my introduction to African music, generally speaking, was probably an African drumming class that I took at the University of North Texas my freshman year during my bachelor's. There was an ethnomusicologist named Steve Friedson that was teaching an African drumming course, uh, and he was teaching it about Ayway drumming, and he had a drummer that was named, I think it was uh, Godwin. There was a guy that had come and taught for him a couple semesters in and out as like a lecturer, and I think Steve had gone to Ghana to study with Godwin. That guy ended up hiring on another guy named Gideon, who was a Away master drummer, brought him and gave him an honorary doctorate at the University of North Texas. And I think Gideon is still there teaching today. Gideon probably pound for pound, from what I've been told, is probably the best living drummer in that tradition still to the day. So I got to study with Gideon for a year or so, but to be honest, like I wouldn't say that I was introduced to it. I searched for it because as African Americans, my experience has been that if you want to go on the type of journey that we have to go on to figure out who we are, you might end up in an African dance class or a drumming course or something to that effect on that search for self. Right. And that's what I did. And they had an African drumming class at the University of North Texas, and I took it. Now, it was taught by a Jewish, I think, Jewish ethnomusicologist, which is part of, I think, it is typical, right? Like, and that's how it got to me. Didn't matter to me though. It was what I wanted, right? And the A-way drumming is super rich, and I really dug the class, and I excelled at it because I'm a good drummer. Uh, but by the time he brought Gideon there, I wanted to learn from Gideon, but I was also the only Black person in the class and had been for, I don't know, 3 years, right? And so I was tired of being the token African American in the African drum class, and didn't really care whether Gideon was there or not. I was done with that dynamic, and so I left. But appreciated the drumming, but I felt like it used me more than I got out of it, if you will, right? So
Yeah.
now the stuff that I did learn and that I was exposed to rhythmically, I recognized when I moved to Puerto Rico, when I started being coming around people that were like rumba performers and really people that were playing. I had not seen bata, but the people that were playing rumba were senderos, and also some of them played bata. And so, that those things are very intertwined in that world. It wasn't in Cuba, it was in Puerto Rico, but it was people that were practicing lukumi and Afro-Cuban, Yoruba tradition, and then also playing Afro-Cuban rumba in Puerto Rico. And I was around those people, and coincidentally, the first time I was around them for any long period of time, I was DJing hip hop on a cruise ship that was playing a party that was going in between St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. And I was hired as a DJ. And then there was a Rumba group from Puerto Rico that was hired. And then the guy hired a Nigerian drummer and dancer. So it was a really kind of wild little ship to be on. The party was a flop, but the music was amazing. And we were all staying in the same little guest house in St. Thomas. And to watch the Puerto Ricans that were playing rumba play and sing Orisha songs in front of the Nigerian who understood them and was like, you guys sound like my great grandparents. Your accent, what you're saying, like he was blown away. I was blown away by watching them because as an African American, I saw that my Puerto Rican neighbors had what I'd always wanted in their hands and their mouths. And I didn't need to go to Nigeria to get it. They had it, and so yeah, I followed them later on in life when I decided that I wanted to find out more about what that was.
That's dope, man. That's a really beautiful story. I want to go back a little bit. Could you just give a brief introduction as to who you are, what you do, what you are dedicating your life and your work to, etc.?
Sure. So I was born Mark Underwood. That's my birth name in Hammond, Indiana in 1975. I grew up in northern Indiana in a really small farming town called Goshen, Indiana. I got hip to music probably through my mother who played piano in the church, but then I got into drumming seriously in like early 90s because I saw a drum and bugle corps show and I had a competitive like DCI style marching band and drum instructor. And they took me to go see a group called the Santa Clara Vanguard in 1990. And there were two black tenor drummers on the line. And I'd never seen that before because I grew up in a mostly white town. And I was inspired by them and wanted to do what they did. And so I just really clamped down on the whole DCI thing and wanted to, my dream was to march in the tenor line at the Santa Clara Vanguard. I didn't actually do that, but what I ended up doing was marching with the University of North Texas my freshman year of college, and they're kind of like a feeder gameplay place for all of those DCI lines when they're not in season. And so if I heard that if you want to drum in college on that level, North Texas was the place to go in the 90s because they had won like a PASIC competition 10 years in a row. They never lost. And it was just a feeder system for that. So that's why I went to North Texas and then eventually bumped into this African ensemble and started, looking for things that I liked, like hip hop, for example. I found there was a great DJ there named Baby G who had won the DC or had won the DMC in like 91, I think. So he was around. And then Erica Badu was still Erica Wright during that time. And I was hanging out with her and some other folks that had graduated from HBCUs and had come back to Dallas, Texas during that time. So I was kind of in the mix during all of that. And all of those folks sort of led into the way that I decided I wanted to make music later on in life. So I started from there, producing hip hop, DJing in that world, starting to record MCs and rappers once I moved to Puerto Rico. In 99, I moved from Texas to Puerto Rico, really after the death of my brother, but also after the death of James Byrd Jr., who was the brother that got lynched in Texas and drugged behind a truck. He was decapitated. That happened while I was in Texas. And I was like, you know what? I'm done with the U.S. I'm out of here. I had gone to Puerto Rico on vacation in 97, liked it, wanted to learn about Latin culture. So I was like, I'm going to go there and see what I could do and maybe learn that language and see like what Latin culture is all about. I had gotten a Tito Puente CD that my dad gave me when I was young, and I liked that music. So yeah, it just seemed natural. And of course, right when I got there, I saw rumba. I was into dance hall. They had the beginnings of reggaeton, which I can't stand, but they had some things I liked, and I ended up staying there and working in community with artists there for about 21 years, recording projects there, and eventually recorded my own project, which I built off of the nuts and bolts and the musical language of Cuban rumba and the music of the Orisha as played on Patat. So
Yeah, man. Man. What a story. What a journey. That's dope, man.
it
That's
was a
dope.
wild one. It
Yeah,
continues.
definitely. So, what would you say are some of the biggest lessons that you have learned on that journey, just as far as music goes, as far as yourself as a man, as a black man? What are some of the biggest takeaways that you can see looking back so far?
I mean, I think like follow your dreams, right? Follow your dreams, like jealously so, the ability for us to dream and to imagine a future. That's kind of what creation is, right? Is like imagining something and having the ability to make it a manifestation of an idea, right? And so it works on a creative sense, but it also works on world building, building the world that we want to live in, right? I think I try and build the world I want to live in by being an example of the way I think that you can live. I've stopped doing specific things like DJing hip hop, for example. I felt that I couldn't do that with dignity anymore because I didn't like the music, right? And so I was going to stop being in the club DJing a music that I don't like and learn how to play Cuban rumba, take a pay cut, like a massive pay cut, in order to play music that I respected in order to keep my dignity, right? So that's you behave and move in the world like you would like others to behave and move in the world, and I would like to a type of freedom, and I try and move with that freedom and allow other people to move with that freedom if possible as well. So you know, uh, as far as Black American music, I think that like the big reason I left Puerto Rico was because I felt that my music couldn't be celebrated there because I am a Black American and I'm not Puerto Rican. And I felt that at a certain extent, like, that's the other. But before that, I would say that like you have to work tirelessly, I think, I appreciate mastery. So there's a painter named Kerry James Marshall that had a show called Mastery not too long ago, and he talked about why it was important for him as a painter, as a Black painter, to study the great masters. And he said, well, if I want my works to hang in the Met or in the Guggenheim or whatever, I have to know what the other painters whose paintings hang in the Met and the Guggenheim do or did in order to be able to make something that's on the level that they did. And so he was like, that's why you study the great masters. And once I feel like I know what they know, then I can do what I want to do with that. Right. And I had to do the same with that when it came to learning how to make hip hop. You study people like Premier, like Pete Rock, you study Dilla and what they're doing to a certain extent. Now, there was an ethos in that era that they never showed you what they were doing. There was no YouTube, and it wasn't like here's how to make a Dilla beat or. So I got an MPC 3000, but there was no what is Premiere doing. You had to listen to what they were doing and imagine it and kind of break it down in like a vacuum. And we learned to do that. I learned to play all the DCI stuff. Those lines weren't around me. I had to like cassette record a TV recording of them doing it, and then for the year learn all those parts off the cassette recording. It's what I thought. It's what I think it looks like, but I don't know any of those guys from California. I'm in Indiana, but how do I get the knowledge? When I bumped into Bill Summers over here drumming, he said the same thing. He was like, I was like in Detroit and we wanted to learn how to play bata and timbales. So if there was a Cuban movie that had a little bit of bata, we would go watch the movie and like rewind it and whatever. So I've been in that area where you're trying to get knowledge of things. And I think that just translates across generations, period. You got to want it. And if you're not willing to do some of the craziest shit ever in order to get it, then it ain't for you. I think, and to me, the people that were willing to do that made a music that sits on a level, and we can't pretend that people that aren't willing to do the same things are making a music that's on the same level that they're on. I don't care how conceptual it is, right? It can be conceptually more powerful, but theirs was also conceptually powerful. And so I think that there's a honesty factor that needs to happen with people about our ancestors and people that have come before us, what they've had to do to get the information, whether it's centuries or whether it was like in the last 20 years, 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, and so, I think that's a respect for people that have come before you, and it's respect for your ancestors. This is on down the line. It's a chain of respect. So I think that that's super important. Now, as an African American, I realized oh, well, I'm essentially an American and Puerto Rico is a colonized place, you know, and I don't think that there's many people that would want to take a time machine and go back to chattel slavery and live in the United States during that year. And I don't think that many people realize what it's going to take to move from the United States, which is a racial, how do you call that, apartheid system, to Puerto Rico, which is racially apartheid and a colonized land, and live under that kind of pressure, because that colonized pressure has eroded the ability of Puerto Ricans on the island to imagine a future for themselves, where it's not being oversighted by somebody else, right? And where they have control of their destiny. Whereas I think we as African Americans, we have to fight for our destiny left and right. And I showed up as somebody that was willing to fight for what I wanted, because that was the only way I knew how to get it, right? And it was just a different thing. So in that sense, when I was there and I was touring the world already, I had already played Paris 3 times that year and London 3 times the next. If they sent a writer from the New York Times to Puerto Rico to write about independent music, they were either going to talk to Bad Bunny or Tego Calderon. And then after those 2 people, they might have bandwidth for one other person. And if they ended up talking to me, then it means that I'm taking resources from somebody who's ethnically Puerto Rican in a colonized land. And I think that that's wrong. Right now, I might think that the other people they talk to, their music is shit and they don't merit what I merit, but they need hero building, right? And I'm the undisturbing fact probably is that, like, I was in Puerto Rico and I innovated in Afro-Cuban music while I was in Puerto Rico, and I'm African American. But I'm in Puerto Rico and on the land, I'm making the crazy shit out there. And you can like it or not. But it doesn't matter so much, I think, for them in this moment, whether they like it or not. They need to be able to build their own heroes. And I'm in the way of that. But I still deserve to be heard and seen and understood. And I could not be heard or understood there. Like when you started this conversation off talking about my Puerto Rican heritage, that's only because the narrative out there doesn't allow for any kind of, how could this a brother from Indiana be the one that's make that doesn't make any sense. I mean, and I understand why you wouldn't think so. I get that I'm light skinned and all that, but like, I mean, I was never Latin. So, uh, you know, I understand, like, again, like I was the first person from there to play a tiny desk, period. Um, and it's inconvenient, and it's also inconvenient probably for Daime Rosena or Osande Monte or whatever, to know that somebody innovated in their genre that wasn't Cuban, right? But I did, and it just is what it is. Now I did it, and when I did it, I said in every press release, this is Afro-Cuban music. I learned from these people. Like, this is a music that I love, and I'm only really trying to take what I heard from them, like the Santa Clara Vanguard drumline way back in the day, because I don't have money like that. I can't go to Cuba like these other people and just study with whoever. I'm going to get it how I can get it. And how I got it was learning it from the people that were around me, the Puerto Ricans that were playing it. So I learned from them with great respect for what's happening in Cuba, but I'm not made of money. I'm not on, and so, but I love what they're doing. So I just learned as much as I could do about it, and then made something that I was able to make. I'll never be able to play it like the Cubans. They're the best players. I'll never be able on that level. I didn't grow up playing a shekere or a conga from when I was a little kid. I grew up skateboarding and whatever else, right? So, but I have great respect for it, and I've never hit it. And in fact, I put it out there in the front. But in Puerto Rico, it wasn't possible because the majority of that population doesn't know the difference between rumba, bomba, plena. They just don't know. And even salsa, right? And they also have a history of basically taking salsa from the Cubans, changing the name of it, and then commodifying it while the Cubans weren't able to play it, right? And so I know that history. And so in my bio, it says, yeah, African-American guy living in Puerto Rico who uses Afro-Cuban rhythms to blah, blah, blah. It says that on my bio, but I can't tell you how many times people took that bio and changed it to, African-American brother living in Puerto Rico who uses Puerto Rican rhythms to blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not true, right? And that's not what I said, but I know why you need to change it. So yeah, I would say, as a Black musician, the sky and the world and the universe are the limit. And that's what I felt when I listened to my idols like Coltrane, like Dizzy. Even, I mean, I loved rap at a time, But like, I think Kendrick, for example, is making a music that is nuanced on a level that only the people that really love what he's doing and the tradition that he comes from understand it. Other people can like it, but it's not for them, right? And there's something about, I think, what John and these guys are doing. It is universal, yes. Like a love supreme is a message. My stage name is IFE. It means love. That's the message, right? But the platform is a platform that goes beyond all the borders and boxes I was ever put into as a child, as an adult, and whatever. And I'm just using the things that were around me, and my traditions come from Black America, Latin America, all of these places that whatever. But as a Black American, the sky's the limit. So I don't like being in a box, obviously. You know what I'm saying? But I won't allow the box to define what I'm going to make in the 90 years I may have on this earth, you know? So that's what I'd say.
Nah, that's dope, man. That's really good perspective, I think, for not only musicians, but African diasporic traditionalists and cultural workers. All of that is profound, man. It's profound. I wanted to touch on the point where, your band is IFE and y'all take, Afro-Cuban rumba, Afro-Cuban rhythms, songs, and you add this electronic component. What inspired that, and how do you see that? Because I see it as kind of a new tradition within, kind of the innovation and carrying forward of these cultures and these rhythms and kind of reinterpreting them to match the times. I want to get your perspective on that, on, what inspired that, and how you see what you're doing carrying forward.
I know we don't have much time, so I would say quickly, the first thing that really put me on that path was probably DJing, and when hip hop. I made a living DJing hip hop and dancehall for like 20 years. And I remember when Lil Wayne's A Milli came out, I was DJing a lot of little small clubs that didn't have very great sound systems. And when A Milli dropped, it's like a milli, a milli, a milli, high frequency, bass, bass. And the bass was so low that you really couldn't hear it on regular speakers at some clubs. And I didn't understand that. And so I was like, what the fuck? The bass is not. And so I would turn it up and I would blow those speakers because they weren't equipped to handle that frequency. And that was a line in the sand in modern music, in my opinion, that now modern music is hitting on frequencies that even the equipment that we have to listen to it is not prepared. We like, so that happened at the same time Beats by Dre came out, and they had like a set of headphones that were like $400 studio headphones. And you would put those on, and I think that the Jay-Z Black album came out. Not Black album, the one that like looks gothy. I forget what the name of it was, but it was like his first trap album. And you would listen to that, and the frequencies were crazy low. Like that was like Watch the Throne era, right? Is like trap is popping. And so I wanted to make music that hit on those frequencies. But my peers were Premier, Pete Rock, Dilla, these people in production, and I had always sampled old music. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to make music now for me as an artist myself and not supporting or making beats for anybody else or other, what do I want to do? I want to create something that moves like jazz and is as nuanced as jazz, like the artists that I love, like Coltrane and Dizzy or whatever. But that hits sonically in a modern way. And so I said, I'm going to take the most modern sounds and I'm going to apply them to a structure that can have communication in the way that bebop can move. And rumba seemed like a parallel to me because the same way you can watch a jazz trio without having to know how to play jazz, but still enjoy it, you could go see a rumba group and not know how the quinto's moving or what it's supposed to do, but you can enjoy it. But if you do know, it's like watching a chess game. If you know how to play chess, you can understand what the players are doing. And oh, that was a good move. I didn't see that one coming, right? And it's a game that we play intellectually. For those that want to play and take the time to be interested in it, it's a game. And I wanted to make a game that moved in a way that was just as intelligent as these other guys were doing in the 1960s, my way. And the only way I knew how to do it was taking something that I could learn quickly. Because I'm a drummer, I could learn the rules of Cuban rumba to break the language apart more quickly than I could maybe find time to try and do what I think Elvin Jones already did to death in the Coltrane years, right? So there's no reason for me to pick up a drum set and do that. It's been done. I haven't seen somebody really innovate, really. Like Roomba's not necessarily trying to innovate, it's trying to do something traditionally, and it sort of stayed in its same place. And that's great, but I'm a tinkerer. You know what I mean? And so that's what I tried to do, was create a language. Now, I think so, and the way I did it was to add electronic sensors to the drums so that you would then be able to change what the sound is without changing the musical language at all, actually. You know, and I think the best metaphor to that would be, there's a song on my first album called Prayer for Odudua. And I basically took the Bata Tratado for Odudua, and I played it exactly the same as you would normally play it, but I changed the sounds to like these subs and kicks and snares and whatever. So like your left hand now becomes a 808 snare, and maybe your grace note becomes a hi-hat. Your right hand, which is like the inu on the fat drum, becomes a sub, but instead of it being one drony sub note, I can make it be 5 notes in the scale. And now your right hand is playing bass lines in the scale. And that's just a fucking innovation, because it takes 3 drums that were not melodic, and now the aconcolo is also playing a pattern that it's the same aconcolo pattern, but it's moving in the melodic scale now. And the itotole is now doing the same thing on 2 heads, but it is also moving in the melodic scale, because I can make it, you can break up that itotole pattern and play it on 6 drums instead of 2, right? And now it can travel sonically in the scale because it's tuned to electronic sounds. And that, I think, was where the real innovation came. And I might not have thought about it in terms of this is like why it's significant. I knew it was significant, but I think one thing that occurred to me after I made that tune was like, well, I didn't change the vocal approach and I didn't change the rhythmic approach. It's the same approach. And so in that sense, this is maybe what the music would sound like in a world where there are no more trees, there are no more animal skins, right? And how do you still have the ceremonies that you need to have? These are like, Bata music is just practical. I mean, it is mad, it is like great to study. It's a whole world, but it's for spiritual possession. That's what it's for. Done. You know what I mean? And how do you still do that if there's no trees, there's no animals, but there's still religion? You still have to have the Orisha come down. You still need to hear from Otrun. We still like, and so maybe that's what it would sound like, right? You know, because we might be facing a world where there's no trees and animal skins real soon, you know, and will there still be God? Yeah, I think there will. So, you know, how do we communicate, you know? So.
Yeah, man, that's deep. That's deep. I think it's definitely a true innovation. I think it's something that at some point in time is going to be picked up and continued. So it's dope, man. Thank you for that contribution. I know you said you had to jet. Do you have any more time?
I mean, what time is it? I got a jet in maybe like 10 minutes.
Okay. Cool. So my next question is, what are some of your goals as an artist and a culture worker? What do you want to leave behind as your legacy?
I don't know. I don't think that much of myself. You know, I mean, I have self-value, right? But I think by saying that, I mean, I think that the first record I did, there's enough documented, recorded music and videos so you could see how I was doing it, that it should go down in history for whoever wants to find it, you know? And so in that sense, I think I could die with and feel that I've made something significant, which a lot of people can't do. And I don't want to die, you know what I'm saying? But I think I have made something significant, and that means a lot, you know. Now, will that legacy matter in ever? I think that it will, but nobody knows, and people can worry about that later on, right? Like now, so knowing that I've done that, or knowing that I feel like I've done that, right? My question for myself right now is, am I interested in anything at all? I think I'm about to turn 50, you know, and I think that there's plenty of people that make great stuff when they're young, and then they get into like family or a house, or I don't know, their career, like some of the whatever, they stop being musicians, they start having to pay the bills, take care of their folks, like life goes on, right? So am I interested in making anything? I think that's a question a lot of motherfuckers should ask themselves, and or am I interested in anything? That's the first question. And yes, I am interested in some things still, right? I think I still have something to learn as a person. That's what the answer to that is, or right. And so, yes, I still can learn things. Do I want to make more artwork? Yes, I do. Right. Do I know what it's going to sound like? I mean, if I have to, I know how I approach making artwork and music. So if I approach it in a similar way, I have an idea of what it might sound like, but I know that I don't want to be associated with Latin America anymore, right? And I made a conscious decision to come back to the States, right? And so I'm in search of Black America 2024 and what my peer groups, if there's a peer group to be had, is making, and how I can contribute to that sound, knowing where I've come from for the last 21 years, right? And so I moved to New Orleans for that reason, right? And there are definitely elders of mine that I've met here, like Mestre Curtis Pierre, who's been out here for years. I love Curtis. Oh my God. And so Curtis is or Zohar, right? I started drumming with Zohar when I got out here too. Zohar is like, these are people that are inspirational for me, but they're a couple generations ahead of me. But I can learn from them, right? And Bill's the same way. Bill, I see Bill all the time. Bill calls me all the time. And I'm like Bill, right? And so I like being in that city because of these guys, but I also like being in the city because it spawned so much culture in the US. And I think it still is a place loaded with it. And so what I'm trying to do now is just see how what I've learned over the last 35 years of making and producing music could be applied here to this city to contribute to the artist pool that's here, and also be able to make something I feel is significant and something that shows that entire journey that I've had and where I'm at now, right? And that's what I'm trying to make moving forward. I think that there's another album that I will release under the name IFE, and maybe the stuff that I'm working on now is part of that. But I think that I had to answer those questions myself this year. Like, are you interested in anything? If you are, yes, then do you want to continue to make music? Yes, I do. What is that going to sound like? Well, I think it should sound like something I haven't made. You could hear my past in it, but it should sound like something I haven't made rhythmically, and it should reflect my surroundings. And I want it to sound like something no one else has made either, right? And so I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I think I'm on to a couple things, and we'll see. I just want to have the space to be able to explore them a little bit more before, I roll them out, right? And again, like, this has been something that's important for me, is that, like, I was real honest about who I was making the music for when I made the IFE stuff. Generally speaking, the message is love, and that message can communicate to anyone, right? And so I try to explore broad themes and have the music be accessible, but it's accessible in the same way that chess or any other game is accessible. And I'm playing it for people that really understand it, right? And I'm making it for me. I have to like it, and I have to love it, and I have to feel that it merits attention, right? And so I'm not necessarily making it for people that might consume my next album that bought all the other stuff, whatever, or so that I could have market share in the Latin American booking in some festival, or that I can be top billing at Afro Pop or whatever, or try and make it sound like, no. It just has to be what I think is amazing. I have to love it, and I have to believe that there are other people that are going to love what I love. That's it,
Man, that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, Ife. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your perspective.
To
Uh,
it.
how can people get in touch with you, support you, work with you, learn more about what you're doing?
I mean, I'm on Instagram. I have two of them. I have one that's just underscore IFE, so underscore IFE. I got the name through the Life magazine logo by looking at that logo and being like, oh wow, if you take the L off, you get Ife in Yoruba. That's love and expansion. It's red and white. That's the colors of Shango. Ashe, that's me, right? So that's how I got to Ife. And then I have another account called Baba Low Life, where it's just like me exploring all of this polo collection. I'm like a Ralph Lauren collector, right? And so I took the idea that I'm a Babalao and that there's a low life community called Low Lives that are polo collectors, and I just stuck that shit together as Baba Low Life, and that's my other IG. So you could find me on either one of those pages. Just hit me in the DM. I'm around. You know, I really appreciate you reaching out and having making space for this conversation. It means a lot to me to be included here. So
Yes, yes, thank you so much. There's definitely space for you, Mark. I look forward to staying in touch with you and working with you soon. So yeah, thank you so much, man. Enjoy your day.
okay, you too. Take good care, brother.